I need to talk about something that's been bothering me for a while, and I think a lot of you have felt this same weird discomfort scrolling through your feed lately. There's this new wave of people online calling themselves vibe coders, or teaching what they call vibe coding, and the pitch is always some version of the same thing. You don't need to learn programming anymore. Just describe what you want to an AI, let it generate the code, and boom, you're a developer now. Quit your job, build an app this weekend, launch a SaaS by Friday. Become a six-figure indie hacker before your coffee gets cold. And look, I get why this is appealing. I really do. Learning to code the traditional way is hard. It takes time. It's frustrating. You spend hours debugging something that turns out to be a missing semicolon, and you want to throw your laptop across the room. So when someone shows up promising you can skip all of that pain and just vibe your way into a working product, of course people want to believe it. But here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud, so I'm going to say it. Most of these gurus aren't actually building anything real. They're building demos. And there's a massive difference between a demo and a real product. But almost nobody watching these videos understands that difference, because the gurus have every incentive to hide it from you. Let me explain what I mean by that, because I think this is the actual core of the problem. When you watch one of these videos, you see someone typing a prompt, the AI spits out some code, they hit run, and something appears on the screen. Maybe it's a little to-do list app, maybe it's a landing page, maybe it's some basic dashboard with fake data in it, and it looks like magic. It looks like they just built a whole app in 90 seconds. What you don't see is what happens after that. You don't see what happens when a real user tries to log in and the authentication breaks because it was never actually configured properly. You don't see what happens when two people try to use the app at the same time and the data gets mixed up because there's no real database logic underneath it, just some placeholder that happened to work for a single demo run. You don't see what happens when the app needs to handle an edge case, like someone typing an emoji into a form field, or someone with a slow internet connection, or someone using a different browser. You don't see the security holes. You don't see what happens 6 months later when the AI-generated code has grown into an unmaintainable mess that not even the person who built it can understand anymore, because they never understood it in the first place. They just approved whatever the AI gave them because it looked like it worked. That's the gap these gurus never talk about. The gap between something that runs once on your machine in a controlled demo environment versus something that actually survives contact with real users, real data, real traffic, and real edge cases over time. That gap is enormous. It's not a small detail. It's basically the entire job of being a software engineer. And here's what really gets me. A lot of these guru accounts aren't even run by people who understand that gap themselves. Some of them genuinely don't know what they don't know because they've never actually shipped something that thousands of real people depend on. They built a fun little demo, it got some views. They realized they could monetize the excitement around AI coding tools, and now they're selling courses and templates to people who trust them as an authority, when really they're just one demo ahead of their audience. I wanted to be clear about something though, because I don't want this to come across as me hating on AI coding tools themselves. I don't. These tools are genuinely incredible. They can save real developers enormous amounts of time. They can help someone learning to code understand concepts faster. They can turn a rough idea into a working prototype in an afternoon instead of a week. That part is real, and it's actually one of the most exciting shifts in this entire industry in years. My problem isn't with the tools. My problem is with the way certain people are selling the tools as a replacement for understanding, instead of what they actually are, which is an accelerant for understanding. There's a huge difference between using AI to speed up work you already know how to evaluate versus using AI to generate work you have no ability to evaluate at all. The first one is a superpower. The second one is basically gambling with extra steps. Think about it like this. If you already know how to cook, and someone hands you a meal kit with pre-chopped ingredients and a recipe card, that's fantastic. You can move faster, you can experiment, you save time on the boring parts. But if you've never cooked anything in your life, and someone just hands you a plate that looks like food, you have no idea if it's actually cooked properly, if it's safe to eat, if the flavors even make sense together. You're just trusting that it looks right, and looking right and being right are not the same thing, especially the first time something goes wrong. That's exactly what's happening with a huge percentage of the vibe coding audience right now. They're being handed a plate that looks like food, being told it's a full meal, and they have no way to actually check if it's safe, because they were never taught how to check in the first place. And the gurus love this, honestly, because a student who can't evaluate the output is a student who has to keep coming back for the next course, the next template, the next secret prompt that supposedly fixes the problems they're running into, which conveniently are problems the guru could have warned them about from the start, if warning them wasn't bad for business. There's also this thing that bothers me about the whole ship in a weekend culture that's Grown up around vibe coding. It treats software like it's disposable content. Post it, get some views, move on to the next idea. And for some things, sure, that's fine. Not everything needs to be built to last forever. But when you're talking about products that real people are going to trust with real information, whether that's their email, their payment details, their business data, whatever it is, ship it fast and don't worry about the details is genuinely dangerous advice. We've literally talked about this before on this channel. Stories about SaaS products getting hacked, about how easy it actually is for things to go wrong when the people building software don't fully understand what they're building. A huge chunk of those stories start exactly here. Someone moved fast, skipped understanding the fundamentals, trusted a tool to handle the hard parts, and something broke in a way they never saw coming because they didn't even know what to look for. I think the most honest way to describe what's happening is this. AI didn't remove the need to understand how software works. It just moved where that understanding needs to show up. Instead of needing deep knowledge to write every line yourself, you now need enough knowledge to evaluate whether what the AI wrote is actually correct, secure, and sustainable. That's a different skill, but it's still a real skill, and it still takes real time to build. The gurus selling the dream skip that part entirely, because you still need to learn things, just different things, doesn't sell nearly as well as you don't need to learn anything at all. I also want to bring up something a little uncomfortable about the business model behind a lot of these accounts, because I think it explains a lot of the incentive here. Most of these people aren't actually making their money from the products they're vibe coding. They're making their money from teaching other people how to vibe code, which means their actual product isn't software. Their actual product is you watching, believing, and eventually paying for a course. And when your real business is convincing people that something is easy, you have zero incentive to be honest about how hard the real parts actually are. Every time they show you a smooth, perfect, 90-second build, and skip over debugging, skip over deployment issues, skip over what happens when real users show up, they're not lying exactly, but they're doing something almost worse. They're only showing you the 10% of the process that photographs well, and letting you assume that 10% is the whole picture. I've watched a lot of these accounts honestly, out of morbid curiosity more than anything else, and there's a pattern that shows up constantly. They'll post something like, "I built a full SaaS in 1 hour using only AI," and the comments are full of beginners who are genuinely inspired, genuinely hopeful, thinking their path to financial freedom just got dramatically shorter. And a handful of comments down, you'll find someone who actually tried to build something real using the same approach, describing exactly the mess I talked about earlier. Broken authentication, data leaking between users, an app that worked fine with one person testing it and completely fell apart the moment more than one person touched it at the same time. Those comments almost never get the same visibility as the original hype post, because algorithms reward excitement, not honesty. So here's what I actually think. If you're someone who's genuinely interested in building something using these tools, and I think there are a lot of you watching this who are in exactly that position, use the tools. Seriously, use them. They're incredible, and ignoring them at this point would honestly be a mistake. But treat every single thing they generate the way you'd treat a rough draft written by a very fast, very confident, occasionally very wrong assistant. Not the final answer. A starting point that still needs a human who understands what correct actually looks like, checking it, questioning it, and fixing what's broken. And be deeply skeptical of anyone online who tells you that step doesn't matter anymore. Be skeptical of anyone whose entire personal brand depends on convincing you that the hardest, most valuable skill in this entire field, understanding how software actually works, can just be skipped now. Because if that were actually true, they wouldn't need to sell you a course explaining how to do it. The demand for that course existing at all is proof that the skill still matters. The tools changed. The shortcuts got shorter, but the gap between something that looks like it works and something that actually works, safely, reliably, for real people over real time, that gap never closed. It just got better at hiding, right up until the exact moment it doesn't. If this is something you've been feeling too, watching all this vibe coding hype and wondering if it's actually as easy as it looks, subscribe, because we're going to keep pulling back the curtain on stuff like this.